Click the button. Then it says we're recording. And then hello, everybody. Welcome to another spin-off podcast video recording video series with Dr. Peter. I just decided to call it Dr. Peter's Sci-Fi Classics because we kind of sort of pick them, the recommendations of things we may have seen or not seen or been a long time since we've seen them, rewatching them. And of course, joining me is Peter.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. Today we are talking about what I believe was described as a science fiction action horror movie, the 1992, I almost want to say kind of dystopian cyberpunk fusion, throw that in there too, starring Rutger Hauer as basically this police officer who is naturally the sort of rogue cop who plays by his own rules, but he's actually had some trauma because his partner was killed by this serial killer who has returned and is mutilating bodies and tearing people's hearts out. Oh, I also should say supernatural fantasy, throw that in there too. Now
Yeah,
that I'm thinking of the plot. And yeah, he also has a partner who's kind of this neurotic, bookish, geeky guy. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Giles from Buffy, sort of is his partner. They kind of have their chemistry. There is also his friend's, I think it was his friend's girlfriend, who's Kim Cattrall, who ends up becoming his love interest. She comes into the mix, and it takes place in London in the far off future of 2008, I believe, when things are kind of flooding because of global warming issues. So seems like a relevant topic, of course, for sci-fi. Yeah, really that's it. He just kind of goes on the prowl to hunt down this killer and team up with people and save the day. And that's pretty much the plot. I wanted to kind of get that out of the way because it's pretty simple, but there's a lot of details. First of all, Peter, um, I like I like your suggestion, and I wanted to say I always like to pick your brain. What made you think Split Second when you watched it? Tell me to watch it and discuss it.
well, and I will see. I'll be upfront that this is not sort of a lost classic in the way that Enemy Mine might be.
Hmm.
This is a film I definitely recommend seeing if this is your sort of if it sounds interesting to you. But um, this is not some movie that somehow got lost. This is one that never really had much of an audience, but has enough uniqueness to it that I think is worth uh, discussing.
Yeah, I definitely can see that, Peter, and I like the recommendation because I definitely say that it's one that might be overlooked. Like if you like this type of sci-fi or really a lot of tropes, I think it's one you could definitely recommend,
Yeah,
like one I think it may be I want to say not necessarily overlooked, but if you missed it, check it out, with certain
yeah,
specifications.
yeah, and it's sort of one of those things. Well, if you've never seen Alien, watch that first. If you've never
Yeah.
seen Blade Runner, watch that first. But if you've seen Alien and Blade Runner and RoboCop, and yeah, this might be worth checking out.
That's your
But
jam. That's a really
yeah,
good recommendation. Yeah, if you've seen these three big things, let's put in kind of more of a B movie that has all those elements thrown together, and it's a fun time. It's fun.
yeah.
And I kind of I really liked the recommendation. Now, first of all, I'll go off and say that I liked the movie, and it seems like a very me movie, as you might guess, because it's got like I was like, this has got a little bit of everything because man, let's see. Okay, what I say? Okay, we got dystopian future, we've got cyberpunk, man, we've got a lot of pretty much every standard like cop action cliche is here. You got one-liners, you got the rogue cop, the chief literally has him say, come into the office. You've done it again. He's got everybody in the precinct doesn't like him. He's got a tragic backstory. There's a serial killer on the loose, and there might be some elements of a creature feature in there. Not to get too spoilery just yet, but you got a lot of good gore, some practical effects, and there's some darker moments, but there's also a lot of camp and cheese at the same time. And somehow, Peter, the thing that surprised me the most about this movie that I want to ask you about, I don't know if there is an answer, but this movie seems like it should have tonal whiplash, but there's something about it that it's like so very aware of what it is and what it's doing that it holds together so well.
Yeah, that is part of what impressed me about it is that, like you said, it's so many different genres mashed together.
Mhm. It's crazy.
And it seems, I mean, it starts off with the, the scene in the nightclub, and he's got a giant gun, and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be really dumb. But I mean, credit to Rutger Hauer, who can take something like this and play it straight and
Mhm.
serious throughout. He's committed to this,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
he is. Um, Reminds me of Hobo with a Shotgun, where he takes a ridiculous premise but plays it with enough humanity
Mhm.
that you go, okay, yep, all right. No, this is the world we're in now. This is absurd, but okay,
The character
we're
in the
yeah,
world, this is his. He's taking it seriously. It's not quite as campy as like Adam West Batman, but it's that same effect. Like it's so ridiculous, but the main guy, this is
mhm,
serious business, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Oh man. And no, I would you say that Rutger Hauer is underrated? Because I after watching this, I was like, I think he might be.
yeah. I think so. I mean, he gets a lot of credit for Blade Runner. Obviously, it's probably the film that most people know him for. But he is so good.
Tears and Rain.
Yeah, he's so good in so many things. I think of Lady Hawk is a favorite of mine. He shows up in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie and brings, he's there to work.
He
And
was
I
also
mentioned,
in the TV series Merlin, the miniseries. He was
yep,
what was he? Vortigern, the bad guy for
hmm
a little bit. He was good in that. He was in this other TV miniseries I like called The Tenth Kingdom. He was the huntsman in that.
hmm
He was really good. And I've never seen The Hitcher, but I've heard he's good in that.
yeah, he's great in The Hitcher. He's had a great career in. Unfortunately, a lot of it's just kind of in these little B movies that people don't think of and don't remember anymore, and some are certainly better than others.
Hmm.
But he always brings his all to it. He's there to do, and he takes it seriously.
And that's actually another point about him I wanted to make was that every movie I've ever seen with Rutger Hauer, before this one, he was either unhinged or he was a bad guy, or he
Mhm.
was like an antagonistic force, or he was just kind of deranged or tragic, like in Hobo with a Shotgun. But this is in this film, he plays. See, I want to say like as much as this is kind of like an over the top action movie, it does feel like a very 80s, early 90s you know, really cheesy action movie. But he plays a character that's not the typical Schwarzenegger Stallone. He's an everyman who's very believable and vulnerable. He seems like a normal guy for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, he's not. Yeah, it's not quite. I mean, it's closer to something like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, Riggs, where he
Mhm.
is. We get that, his apartment, and it's sort of this.
Pigeons and weird stuff all
Yeah,
over
the
the place.
pigeons and the fridge and all the weird stuff.
The motorcycles in there. Oh, yeah, his name's Harley. That's right. He's Harley
Yeah,
Stone
but
is this
it
guy's
but
name.
it but it weirdly, it feels like, again, that, like, oh, of course he has a motorcycle in his apartment. And yeah, and it
Sure.
everything in this is so absurd, but he plays it straight. There's a little bit of maybe a wink in there, like half a wink sometimes, but
Hmm.
you're there and you go, okay, this is the apartment that he lives in. This makes sense. This strange, cluttered bachelor pad. Um, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's it's weird because like it's like somebody wanted to just check all the boxes, Peter. Like all the boxes for every genre movie that we're gonna make like three or four of them in one movie. Make sure we get all the tropes, and they clearly know that, but they're not. They're drawing just enough attention to it, but not too much. It's not really a satire. It's just it seems very self-aware, and but it's at the same time though. I feel like it's juggling so much, and it could easily delve into camp or just messiness, but it's all very competent. It's very efficient. It's an extremely efficiently made movie.
Mhm. Yeah, it's stuff like getting a little bit in spoiler territory. The creature effects,
Spoilers. Yep. Here's the
yeah,
time. Go ahead. We got to talk about it. Yeah.
yeah. But they sort of follow the Alien style of, you don't show the creature that
Mhm.
much. You get shots here and there, but even in sort of the final battle, we don't get a lot of, as with Alien, you avoid showing it as much as possible, because the lurking thing in the darkness or under the water is going to be better than uh, whatever prosthesis. Although practical effects are, I think we've discussed this before,
Mm.
are better, and I think these practical effects are pretty good for low budget 90s.
Yeah, yeah. But I know what you mean. Even in something like Alien back then, a prosthetic could be hard to pull off in some ways, and also, using shadow, using the scenery and the atmosphere is always more effective. I mean, one of your favorites. I mean, Jaws, Spielberg knew that, right? So it's like what we don't know, we can imagine it. So yeah, this film works with that too, and that is actually one of the sources of tension. Is I that it's weird because even though the him and his partner do make little jokes and cracks at one another sometimes, you do feel the stakes and tension when people get killed and when his love interest is alone in the apartment. The blood. I mean, yeah, there is something to it, and that is it is and I will say it's a. I was actually really impressed because, like everything else in the movie, it seems like it's just knocking on the door of just too cheesy, like a lot of other movies could be, but the creature effects, when you finally see it, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I was actually there was one part that I thought, it's one of my favorite things where it's that great balance of great special effects that are also kind of obviously an effect stunt, so you love it for how charming it is, but you still like that they pulled it off. It's it's great when things are elevating at the climax and they're running through the train, and I think it's him. He's on the roof running away, and it's just the claw, because most of the first thing you see is the claw, which is a great hand, by the way, and it's just slicing through the ceiling. He then chasing him, and it's obviously slicing with it. So you're picturing there's got to be this monster underneath just running, but the way it's framed, it just looks like the stiff, obviously prop arm moving against the ceiling. So, but it looks awesome with sparks flying. But I'm like, okay, they might have just had an arm where moving that along, but it's a good arm. And then when you see
Yeah.
the suit, I like that it's mostly in shadow and murky and stuff. And the close-ups on the jaw with the fangs and the dripping goo. It's like, ew, like it's a really, and it's like you can still tell it's kind of a costume or something, but with the wrong lighting, and if it was done with less care, could have been much goofier, but it's pretty effective.
Yeah, yeah. It's a thing that maybe shouldn't work, but it does.
That's
Just
this
like,
movie in a
yeah,
nutshell.
that's
I
this
feel like
movie.
this
Yeah,
movie should not have worked at all.
yeah.
um, yeah, Peter. Well, let me see. I just wanted to see is that's. I feel like that's my general gist of it. Was there anything else specific you wanted to talk about? I remember you had a couple of
Yeah,
things
a
you wanted
few
to bring.
things. I mean, I really like the supporting cast in this. You got Peter Postlethwaite
Oh yeah,
as
Pete
the
Postlethwaite.
chief. You got I think it's Michael Pollard as the rat catcher.
Hmm.
That sort of weird sideline into the, we got to, finding the rat catcher and
But
showing around and that
it,
whole building.
that thing with the rat catcher though. I remember seeing he was kind of like the guest star, like he got the and at the end of the credits. Like, oh, okay, this rat catcher guy's going to be a big factor into the plot. And he's kind of like, the next stage to get you to the end of the movie, but he's there for like 5 minutes and then spoilers, they kill him and his friends. Like it's what?
Yeah, yeah, but it was one of those. It was a small little role, but it was interesting, and really that's one of the things that really stands out to me for this movie is the production design
Hmm. Definitely.
and the world building of the thought they put into, it's 2008 and London is flooded, and I love that every scene they're like knee deep in water.
Yep, they're
uh
at least ankle deep. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
and also I agree with you about production design because that's something I want to comment on. It's a very simple, economical dystopian future. What are we going to do? Have a couple lots in the studio, some crappy old hallways or abandoned buildings, fill them just a little bit with water. But hey, we're in a future where there's everything's flooding, and it's that everything makes everything dirtier, and you get a little bit of course, the like you said, a little Blade Runner, RoboCop. You got the nightclub with weird costumes, and
Mhm.
there's like low tech sci-fi where everything seems pretty close to believable, but there's some enhancements. He's got some sort of psychic ability, and they of course have eventually big guns. I do like the one line where his partner's like, he sees the thing, he's like, we need bigger guns, we need to get bigger effing guns, like, and then they do proceed to get these giant ridiculous fake guns, and it's great. It's just great cheese. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely they don't they don't make movies like this anymore.
No, do you think this felt very much a, I don't know if I'd say like a product of its time, but it very much of its time, because it's like the 80s and especially into the 90s. It reminded me of, like, you see a lot of these kind of, like, kind of not necessarily bargain bin, but direct to video, kind of more B horror action movies that would have been in this vein. And this kind of echoes stuff that might have been more popular, like, I don't know, something like Universal Soldier or something like that. It
Mhm.
kind of sort of that vibe. And you're right. This fusion of like the camp, but I don't know, this not super low budget, but clearly not huge budget movie, just being a fun genre piece. I don't know, why don't you think that they make movies like this? I can't remember the last time I saw something like this in the theaters.
Yeah, I mean that part of it. I mean, part of it's just the whole movie making has shifted so far away from this. I mean, this is not even a mid, but it's a low budget. The budget was like 7 million or something
Oh wow, that is
for
pretty low. Yeah.
even for 92. It is pretty low end, especially considering their actual name. Rutger Hauer is a I'm sure got a decent salary for it.
There's a million right there, probably.
Yeah.
500,000.
Yeah. Um, so it is.
Is it too
Uh,
like experimental and wacky? Like, who? How would you market it? Because I mean, I watched the
I
trailer. It looked more like they were trying to make it more of a thriller.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things. This weird, just throwing every genre at it that benefits from both the climate of the 90s, which had video stores, had late night basic cable. This is the sort of thing. There's a lot of movies like this that is sort of this cheapish schlock that you make, you release in theaters. Well, it doesn't do well. Well, maybe it does better on video. Doesn't
Mm,
do well there, then you release it on cable. But it's harder to make that money back on
mm.
low budget movies. You do have stuff like Blumhouse now, but even their budgets are what we're seeing here. So we've kind of lost these kinds of movies that have enough, have more money than the average like trauma movie of the time, but not maybe that much um, that you can count on making that money back and allowing allowing for this weird mix that I can't imagine explaining okay, it's gonna be like Alien crossed with Blade
Oh
Runner,
yeah,
and
and the
then we're
board reading
gonna
the pitch to the studio. Well, you
yeah,
see,
yeah.
like basically somebody had like a friend that was a producer or director and was like, you know what, fine, I'll do it for you. Let's raise some money. Like, I don't know, somebody had, there was a lot of fun in this, and I feel like this is feels like a, for people that probably just loved sci-fi and action, and if you really like a lot of those things, especially of the previous decade, it just seems
Mhm.
like a really big kind of homage to all those different things. And I'm picturing, if it did well in the video market, like people would rent this when they're playing. This feels like a very, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era. Like this could just be the background to a shoot 'em up game.
Oh yeah, yeah, easily. Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, if this had come out, 5 years later, we would have a PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64 crossover game or something.
Yeah, split second. Oh, that also reminds me. I like the title. How do you feel about the title?
Um,
It
I
doesn't really.
think
Do
it,
you think it
yeah,
fits?
it doesn't really, but
It sounds cool.
I feel like it's supposed to be a reference because because Rutger Hauer's getting these
Hmm.
psychic visions, so it's like this split idea. We never, and I will say I do like that they never really explain what the deal is with the monster.
No, I
It's
was even wondering that. I was like, when I watched the end of the movie, I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something. They allude to things, but they don't really explain what's happening. Like, is it a mutant?
yeah,
Is
it's
he
like
some sort of
it's
demonic thing? Like, what? No, we don't know. We're just gonna kill it.
yeah, it's like oh, it's absorbing the DNA somehow. It's eating the hearts, but we never find out what it. Is it some weird sea creature that came into London? Is it a government? There's never an
Nope,
explanation for it. But
nothing.
I actually kind of like that it just is like, yep, it's a monster, and we've stopped it, and mission accomplished. It's a yeah. It's weird that I feel like today they would have to explain, oh, here's this or that or
There'd be a flashback and like, oh, you see, when we discovered this thing and we didn't know what we did wrong, and then this is this thing's motivation. We'd see things from its perspective. POV shots as an attack. Yeah, they would have a more modern movie. They would have had to flesh it out because there's no way you can make a thing and you have to explain it or people are going to say it's lazy. But this is kind of going with the original Alien, where you don't know much
Mhm.
about the monster or the thing. A lot of those classics, it's just kind of there. Maybe a little less focused, obviously, thematically and tonally than those films, but similar idea.
Yeah, and I mean the case you can make the point now that we went from an alien one that it's just a weird alien on a weird planet, but now we know exactly why the alien is there and who the space jockey and Ridley Scott has explained exactly every step of how we got to Alien, and it's like maybe it could just be a weird alien that we don't understand. And
Which was kind of why the movie was so great in the first place.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but
exactly. And Split Second, we don't know. So nobody has gone
yeah,
back to do a prequel explaining the monster.
no, yeah. There's no graphic novel tie-in or video game spin-off, so it is what it is. But I think it does hold up.
Mhm.
Um, you
Yeah,
know,
I agree with what you said. I think that if you are into niche sci-fi and genre flicks, especially of this ilk, you would really like it. I mean, I would definitely recommend it to. I think most sci-fi fans would get a kick out of this to some extent.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a pretty hard R rated movie. So if you're a little squeamish, there are a few scenes that are a bit intense. But it is. This is and it's just a like exactly 90-minute movie. I think it's tight.
It
It's
is.
focused. It doesn't waste a lot of time. So
Nope.
if you need to just throw this on and it's fun and interesting and um, maybe you'll forget about it immediately after, but I like this one quite a bit.
Good. No, I'm glad you recommended it. And I will say they kind of did a little joke with his partner at the end, kind of narrating it from the perspective he's actually the main guy and my crazy partner Harley. And then he's like, shut up, because he finds him annoying and pretentious.
Yeah,
They do have some good little bits. They seem like real people, which is I think one of the core strengths of the movie is those two. Like they
yeah,
like we said, there's something about how they acknowledge that things are bad and weird, but they've come across something that's gone over the edge, and they're reacting like people would, like, I don't know what's going on. Let's just kill it. And they just seem like real dudes. They are oddly not over the top for the most
yeah,
part, unlike everything else.
they're weirdly, it's weird that sort of the rogue cop and his like partner that he's assigned to that's like this psychologist actually feel like well-rounded individuals that have motivations and might actually exist in the world in some way.
Yeah, and they just that little bit where they were doing that kind of made me think like, oh, this what if this could be like a series of stories and maybe a split second sequel. I could have seen a couple of these.
Yeah, and I would love to see another story set in this in this world, this sort of half flooded London, even if it's not about the, pursuing this heart eating monster, but just the
Mhm.
other things going on, the other, um, what, how did we get to this point, and how are people dealing with the fact, because you see it a little bit in like the trucks they drive have these giant tires, and
Mhm.
it's they're sort of out of the water, and it's like, yeah, of
Uplifted.
course, yeah, you'd have to have if there's 2 or 3 feet of flooding, yeah, you're probably going to want something that's a little outside the water.
Yeah,
But
it's
there's a
the
lot of
subtle world building.
yeah, there's a lot of just great work like that. This is it's a space I'd love to see revisited sometime.
Mhm. Wait a minute. Is this connected? Is this perhaps another prequel to the Waterworld expanded universe?
Ooh, yeah, this could be.
I don't forget when Waterworld takes place, though. Might be sooner. I forget. Um, but
Well, this is 2008, so
uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure World would have happened after that. But
I hope, unless they thought that, man, they jumped the gun even more. Um, but there was another little detail I wanted to mention. In addition to Rutger Hauer, Harley having anxiety issues, which is something you don't really see. He's gotten it, and I also like the little detail of how everybody in the precinct, like the medical professionals, they're all like, "Oh, okay, we got to get him, like calm him down, like let's." They were all oddly helpful, and you just don't really see that too much. Like they were all really compassionate about that, and they gave him like something to calm him down. Like it's just a wide thing. It's kind of like Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon, but oddly handled better. And I liked how it's the cute little things like his his addictions are cigarettes, like cigars, and sweets, like coffee and
yeah,
sugar. That's what his thing
yeah,
is.
yeah, they follow through. There are a lot of scenes of him like eating candy bars and stuff, and these little, um, yeah, it's a very, you expect, okay, gritty road cop, like doesn't feel anything. But no,
Doesn't
he
have
feel,
anything.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, there's a lot more there than you get in a lot of other movies from this era
You know what?
that are,
Actually, I'll give this movie another high compliment, Peter. For a lot of movies that it's kind of trying to imitate that might be bigger and better in some ways, they all follow that stoic, macho, can't doesn't have not a lot of range of emotion, not quite as much depth really, but I think it's a better rounded character than a lot of those standard action heroes actually.
yeah, 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 and again, I think credit to Rutger Hauer for viewing this, and I think the script is good enough that there's enough of that in
Mhm.
there already. um but it's choice and it works.
I agree that this is just another one that, man, I feel like it should not have worked at all, but somehow it really did. It's pretty cool. It's a cool little movie. I liked it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I guess that can wrap it up unless you got any other thoughts about it.
no, that's good.
Oh, that sounds good. I almost forgot to make the joke though that I could have just said this was 0.5 second video and I could have said, that would have actually been their view, a split second,
Yeah, 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 that would have been.
uh open-ended for sure. Like what movie is that? Um, Well, I don't know. I know that you and I are going to be busy here for the next couple months, but maybe we can sneak another one of these in at some point, maybe by the end of the year or
Yeah, I'm
next year.
down with that. Yeah, just I guess it'd be your pick, so whenever you have an
Yeah,
idea.
we had a list of a couple. I'll look through our Facebook messages or I'll come across something and we'll
Yeah,
talk about it. Or if people watch or listen and have recommendations,
yeah,
please.
yeah,
Pretty much, I mean, I guess any sci-fi is on the table, but we kind of tend to prefer ones that aren't talked about quite as much.
yeah, and I'd say so far we've kind of done, I guess we did,
Hidden gems, sort of, kind of.
yeah, yeah, we've kind of lately been doing the 80s and 90s, but
So, we could do some 60s or 70s or
yeah,
more
yeah,
recent. I mean, we could go old school if you want to go 50s. So, yeah, I'll like
yeah.
we'll peruse and yeah, I guess that'll be it, man.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for watching, listening, and we'll say goodbye.
All right.